I work in a lab where we study a protein called NDFIP1. My project specifically looks at how this protein impacts cells that are called Th17 cells. These Th17 cells are relatively new in science speak. They were discovered only about 10 years ago. I'm really excited about them because we're still trying to figure out whether they're good guys or bad guys. And finding out how this protein that we're interested in regulates these Th17 cells, I think, is phenomenal and will contribute a lot of understanding to the field.
We study a family of enzymes and how they regulate immune function. And we've learned that some of these enzymes help to prevent kind of overactivation of the immune system, and that prevents tissue damage by the immune system itself. And so Awo is focused on a particular type of cell that makes cytokines that help to clear pathogenic bacterial infections. But these cells are particularly interesting because they need to be able to tolerate good bacteria that we have in our gastrointestinal tract, for instance, but they need to be able to clear pathogenic infections. And so we're learning about how these enzymes help to allow these cells to get turned on when they need to be and allow to keep the system quiet when it's a bacteria that isn't going to cause damage.
Patients who have really severe asthma tend to have a lot of Th17 cells when we look inside of their airways. In diseases like rheumatoid arthritis, we tend to see a lot of Th17 cells when people have really, really bad rheumatoid arthritis. So we know that they're there and they must be playing a pathogenic role.
One of the things that we're starting to move into in the lab is we're starting to really focus on some therapeutics that may be used to target these enzymes that we study. And I think Awo bringing in her clinical experience in the lab has allowed us to really think more deeply about how the immune function is being regulated by these enzymes and how we might target them therapeutically and how that might predict, how her work might allow us to predict the outcome of how it will change immune function once we have some of these therapeutics in hand and ready to test.
So I decided to go speak to Paula, who's my mentor, and she was visibly very excited about the research that her other students were doing in lab. So this got me really interested in her lab. I sat in on a couple of lab meetings and I was really impressed by how engaged everybody seemed during the lab meeting. People were discussing science with such passion. I knew that I wanted to be a part of that group.
One of the things that makes Awo so successful is her determination in the lab. She's not easily put off when experiments don't work on the first try. So it allows her to take risks in the lab scientifically. She's also a very good colleague with other people in the lab, is very good at teaching other people some of the things that she knows, and is good at taking other people's kind of scientific philosophies to heart and allowing them to integrate into her own thinking.
I probably knew since I was 10 or so that I wanted to be a medical doctor, but I didn't know that you could do medicine and do research until I was in college, and I found out that programs would actually pay you to do research over the summers. I thought that was really cool. So I got to do some research over the summers, and then I was told that you could actually get trained in a program where you could end up being a medical doctor who could do research on the side. I thought it was the greatest job description ever. And so Penn was a natural fit for me because there is just so much great science happening at Penn, and we're surrounded by really two great clinical institutions. So it was a very natural fit for what I ended up wanting to do.
One of the things that I've done really since Awo has joined my lab is I've started teaching in the medical school. So I'm teaching some of the first-year medical students about immunology, and we do this in a very different way than we teach it in the graduate school in that it's case-based. So it allows me to actually have to learn about how people see the immune system from a patient perspective and from a disease perspective. And so it's really helped to develop me and my thinking about the immune system as I'm teaching medical students. And it's then allowed me to integrate that more into the conversations I have with Awo in the lab.
Our lab is located in the CHOP building, which is the Children's Hospital of Philadelphia. And very recently, CHOP did something really cool where they transplanted a young boy who didn't have any hands. They did the first pediatric hand transplant. And I remember walking into work that day and feeling just so proud to be wearing my CHOP badge. It's undescribable how exciting this privilege is to be able to train both clinically and research-wise in a place that has just so much talent and just so much cutting edge stuff going on.